Talking about
Penis
sex.
goes in there.
Subversive idea.
And it warms up.
Talking about sex on Hack.
Could you imagine getting in front of a webcam, getting all sexy, knowing that thousands of people were watching you online? Well, today you're going to meet someone who actually does that for a living. Yes, a webcam porn star. And a few years ago, this wouldn't have actually been a full-time job. But so many people, and maybe even you, demand these services online. So it's actually become a lucrative business. Tom Tilley with you for day 4 of our week of talking about sex. So there is another warning that there'll be some pretty graphic content coming up in today's show as we ask, has the internet and mobile technology made your sex life better or worse?
Online, quite sexy.
If I've gone away for a few weeks with work or whatever, I don't know, a couple of photos with my shirt off or something.
Well, okay, my current boyfriend doesn't live near me, so I guess it enhances it.
Have you sent nude pictures of yourself? Have you had like Skype video, sexual interactions?
No, I haven't. I haven't done that. On a side note, you don't get fixed line broadband in my house, so Skype, is it?
Be a bit jerky.
It would. It'd be very awkward.
Do you actually look at much porn?
No, not really. I could go to a girlfriend.
Once every 2 days, that's normal. That's about me, I reckon.
Okay, once every 2 days. Do you think it changes the way you see women and think about sex?
I expect them to give me a blowjob on the first date, maybe anal.
And then come in their face?
Exactly.
But seriously, do you think porn has changed our expectations of sex?
No, I really do. I think it's like we kind of expect more or expect bigger tits and stuff.
It's Sex Week. Sex. Talking about sex on Hack.
Pretty obvious we are talking about nothing but sex and some pretty graphic stuff there. People talking about their online sex habits. And that was some Triple J listeners giving me a vibe on their tech sex life at a recent Laneway festival. And you can check out the video of that online on the Hack website, triplej.net.au/hack. And I'd love to know what your take on this is. Has online or mobile technology changed your sex life for the better? You know, there's sexting, video chat, smartphone apps, much easier access to porn. Do you think it makes your sex life better, or does it actually pull you further away from your actual in-person, face-to-face sex life? Give me a call.
Hack 1300 0555 36. Text 0439 75 7555. Triple J.
Kath Aubrey is a senior lecturer from New South Wales Uni's Centre for Journalism and Media Research. Now, Kath, a lot of people I spoke to in those Vox Pops there said that the internet and mobile technology hadn't affected them too much in their sex life. Does that surprise you? Do you think the internet has changed our sex lives in a fundamental way?
I don't think it's had a huge effect in terms of the things people are interested in or what their kind of repertoire of practices are, you know, on the ground. I think it probably has exposed people to a wider range of activities and given people ideas in the same way cooking shows give people ideas maybe for meals that they're never going to cook. But what it really has done, I think, has sped up people's ability to access new material, to make connections with new people. It's a sense of connectedness, I think. As much as people say, you know, the internet disconnects people, it's a sense of connectedness across a wider range of activities and across more people across the world, you know, and faster and faster. So people can churn through lots and lots of images at very high speed. You don't have to go back to the sex shop if you don't like the magazine you got, that kind of thing. Yeah, and they can connect, literally they can meet each other online. We'll talk about Grindr versus Blender a little bit later in the show. But you say there that doesn't have necessarily a fundamental impact. It's about the speed of communication, connectedness. But doesn't that increase in connectedness breed a new sexual culture? I think that people definitely have knowledge of a wider range of practices and a sense that lots of other people might be interested in this same thing. So if, for example, you had a fetish for bursting balloons, which some people do, it's a sexual activity for them. Of course. Back in the day, you might think you're the only person in the whole wide world who's into bursting balloons, and you might, you know, make your own birthday party porn or something at home, whatever it is your fetish is. For people online now, you put that into Google and you will find other people who are interested in bursting balloons in a sexual way within seconds. So that's really, I think, connected people, you know, who may have previously felt isolated to other people who have the same tastes and interests. That's not always a great thing, but for some people it's fantastic. It really stops them feeling like freaks.
One listener has texted in saying, watching porn for years has given me skills that my wife loves. And porn's a very interesting one when it comes to the internet and mobile phone technology. And last year, actually, on the show, we had an academic called Gail Dines on the show. And she brought a very controversial point of view to Australia, basically saying that the increased availability to porn meant that people got desensitised to normal porn, so porn got more and more hardcore, and it flowed on to what men were expecting in the bedroom from their partners. What did you make of that thesis?
I was involved in a large Australian study of porn from 2001 to 2003, and we had a survey as part of our study that surveyed 1,000 Australians. Most of the people fed back to us that they saw things in porn sometimes that they thought were extreme. People said, I don't think that that's real life or going to happen in my bedroom. I take it with a grain of salt. Some people did say, though, they probably had unrealistic expectations as a result of porn. There seemed to be a pretty wide range of responses. I think people do try things they see in porn, and that's not necessarily a problem as long as it's a suggestion and people aren't insisting. You know, standard missionary position sex is not a great thing if it's not consensual and it's not something both people want to do. Same is true with any other sexual practice.
One person has said, porn is changing the way my partner relates to sex, and it's made us totally disconnected. But actually, when we had that conversation last year, a lot of people said that porn helped them open up a conversation about sex. Did your research corroborate that? Some
people definitely said that, and people used porn for all kinds of reasons, for, you know, kind of taking the pressure off just when they were horny. And, you know, some people say about porn that it helps them not put the expectation on their partner that the partner has to meet all their sexual needs. So, you know, you don't have to be turned on just because I'm turned on. You know, I've got porn as well, but it didn't make them less attracted to their partner. You know, unless other things in the relationship were not going so well. I think these things are always in the context of whatever else is happening in the relationship.
You are listening to Kath Aubrey from New South Wales Uni. She's a senior lecturer in media and journalism there. And speaking of porn stars, we're actually going to have a porn star on the show in just a moment, but you won't find her in magazines. She actually specialises in web-based porn.
Why don't you stick your tongue up my...
It's Sex Week. Sex. Talking about sex on Hack.
Now, you heard there Kath Aubrey talking about online developments and how they've helped speed up communications and connectedness around sex. Well, there's probably no greater example of speeding up communication around sex than Grindr. If you haven't heard of it, it's a smartphone application mostly used by gay people to hook up for sex. It uses mapping technology so you can hit up people who are close to you. And it really was a bit of a revolution, and it's, you know, known very well for allowing people to hook up really easily. And actually in September last year, the makers of Grindr launched a heterosexual equivalent. Grindr is mostly used by gay people, so the hetero equivalent is called BLENDR. And as Alex Mann reports, the challenge is making that app work for straight women who may not need an application to tell them that they are actually surrounded by willing straight men.
You do, as a woman, receive a lot of unsolicited photographs of penises. That is a Blender fact.
Lucy and her brother Tim have both come out of long-term relationships.
Long-term relationship.
And they're both back in the dating game. Tim's gay and Lucy's straight. Tim's on Grindr and Lucy's on the straight equivalent Blender.
I'm having a really good time.
By the way, those aren't their real names. The apps they're using are geo-social networking apps because they tell you who's nearby and available to chat. And while the app's founders market them as meet-up apps where you get to go to the movies, talk about sport with like-minded people and brush up on your German, seriously, that's what their founder Joel Simkai said in an interview recently about the possibilities of Blender. Most people use it to hook up on dates with a view to having sex. Tim says he's been using Grindr for about 6 months now and he's having a pretty good time with it. Such a great time, in fact, that it's hard to tell exactly how many guys he's slept with.
I don't know. How many weeks are there in 6 months?
24.
24, so there we go. Round about that many. I think the principles of the app kind of correlate with the way in which gay men, or the majority of gay men, are sexually active and sexually open to either anonymous sex or immediate sex or no strings, kind of easy sex.
Do you think straight guys think about sex differently?
No, I don't think straight guys think about sex differently at all. I think that the problem with most straight guys is they're attracted to women, and women, stereotypically, think differently about sex than they do. Gay guys are kind of lucky that, we think about sex pretty much the same as a straight guy does. It's just that so does the other person we want to have sex with.
Indeed, Blender hasn't taken off in the same way as Grindr, which has become a phenomenon among single gay people since it was launched in March 2009. It's been downloaded by almost 3 million people worldwide, with 147,000 of those users based in Australia. Whereas Blender is kind of new to the game, only becoming available in September last year, and it works slightly differently. You have to include details about yourself, your interests, your political persuasions, your hobbies, that kind of thing, before you can actually use the app. Whereas Grindr is just about a photo, a username, and away you go.
Having those additional features where you know what the person's interests are, you know quite a bit about them at a glance just from looking at their profile. That's definitely something that women need and want for emotional reasons as well as for safety reasons.
Amy's in a good headspace after her relationship ended, and she feels totally comfortable about hitting guys up on the app.
I'm just on there to meet people, and I like the fact that I'm in charge. I can block people if I want to, if they're not very nice. I can meet up with people if I want to. I can ignore them if I want to. I'm completely in charge, and I'm not waiting around for the phone to ring.
Some people have questioned whether an app like Blender can be as successful as this near ubiquitous Grindr, simply because of an assumption that women don't need an app to know they're surrounded by willing men.
I'm not sure if it's as simple as saying that.
That's Vanessa Muradian. She's a sexology postgrad and the director of Mia Muse, a women's centric adult store. And she says she doubts the app will get as successful for women as Grindr has been for men.
I'm not sure if an app disguising itself as a general interest meeting, real-time, location-based meeting app is the way to do it properly.
She says she's sceptical, even in light of Lucy's good news stories about the app.
I wish it was the norm, and I wish that women could celebrate their sexuality like that and feel completely confident and find that really attractive to have a whole bunch of men to choose from, and that it's exciting really to just go on these essentially blind dates and see what happens. I wish that more women could do that and really come from it honestly with self-respect.
Vanessa Muradian ending that report from Alex Mann. And I'd love to know if you've used Blender. Does it provide the quick access to no strings attached sex that many straight men hoped it would? I'd love to know what you think. Or do you think casual sex in the straight world will never be as fluid as in the gay world? Give me a call.
Hack 1300 0555 36. Text 0439 75 7555. Triple J.
One person has texted in saying, I met both my immediate next door neighbours through Grindr. Awkward street passings. Another person says, my most successful relationships have been initiated online. I have family and friends that have married partners that they've met online. That's from Chris. Love to hear your thoughts. The text line again, 0439 75 7555. And still with you in the Hack studio is Kath Aubrey. Kath's a senior lecturer from the New South Wales Centre for Journalism and Media Research. Now, Kath, do you think the hetero-focused Blender will ever do what the predominantly gay app Grindr has done for people hooking up?
I think that they probably serve different purposes. Certainly, not every gay guy is into hooking up or, casual sex, but it's much more of an easy thing between two men who don't have the kind of gender power awkwardness in most cases that men and women often do. And for women, I think there still is a sense in which there might be a double standard. So, the real cliche, he's a stud, she's a slut, can sometimes be played out even on casual sex sites or in arenas where you would think that both people should say, well, we're both here for the same reason and we should respect the fact that we're both up for it, and that's a great thing. I think, straight women still get a bit of judgment and a bit of just creepy behaviour from some straight men in those contexts. Not all. Some, are really good at having good, fun, ethical, casual sex, but some are not. So, I think a lot of women will be cautious about it, but the women who aren't will probably have quite a good time.
You talked there about the gender dynamic, and let's get down to the point of the physical power dynamic. Do you think that's something that's always going to hold back these kind of hookups for heterosexuals, that women will always be physically more vulnerable?
It's always been the case that, you know, some gay men have been hurt or have had non-consensual sex during hookups too. So it's not just about difference in physical size. It's about, you know, that sense of vulnerability. And predators, unfortunately, go where they think they will find a victim. And, you know, it's certainly the case that, you know, predators frequent, you know, hookup sites as much as they do anywhere else. And that's why people are right to have things like safe calls to friends, letting someone know where they are, all of those things. Most people I know who have been involved in heterosexual, you know, hookup culture or casual sex culture have had a really good time. But most people can also tell stories of a near miss or a situation where they really had to go with their gut and go, no, this isn't going to happen. There's something not right about this person.
Well, that's right. I've had gay friends that have actually ended up being physically abused through Grindr hookups, and then straight friends who've had a ball. So it can obviously happen both ways. One person says on the text line, I've hooked up with dozens of guys on Grindr. I've even hooked up with guys on Blender. Girls will never view and use Blender in the same way. Another person says, I recently joined Blender and I love it. Use it purely for sex and don't tend to go out and pick up. You know what you're in for beforehand through chats. And yes, it's a bit hit and miss. And that's from someone called A. I'm not sure if that's an Andrew or maybe...
maybe an Amy.
Who knows? Nina, you love Blender.
Well, I just think it's a really great idea. I mean, I'm not single at the moment, but if I was, I'd totally be up for it. I think it's great. And to say, you know, how, like that guy on the text message before, that, you know, women don't feel about sex the same way, that's ridiculous. Of course we do. We fucking love it. But yeah, I think so long as, you know, you're safe and, you know, you get to know the person a little bit beforehand, or, you know, just so, you know, they're on the same level and you're safe with it, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, well, Nina, someone's texted in saying, I've used Blender, but it's a sausage fest. I guess for you, that means you'd have plenty of choice.
Yeah, I guess so. If it's anything like Grindr, Grindr, sorry. I have a gay friend, and all the penises, I mean, oh my God. There's just a whole lot of variety. But yeah, again, I think it's great, so...
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about pictures of penises, because a friend of mine, a girlfriend of mine, tested out Blender recently, and yeah, pretty early on in the conversation, she got some penis shots. Would that worry you? Would that put you off, or would it be just about, checking?
I guess it just depends on the penis and the guy, but yeah, look, if it comes up too quickly on the conversation, then I guess it would be too eager, and that might be a bit of a worry, but because if they're just, you know, shooting the penis pictures out to everybody they come across, I guess that's a little sus, but
yeah.
But I guess as long as it's in the right mood and it's sexy, then yeah, it's cool.
All right, thanks so much for the call, Nina.
No worries, thanks guys, bye.
And one person has called in saying that their gay friends use Blinder because they want to convert straight men. Very interesting.
Talking about sex on Triple J.
Yes, you are listening to a week where we are talking about sex non-stop. And just to let you know, the Hack podcast has actually gone to #1 overall. And you can sign up for that on iTunes and never miss an episode of Hack. It will download to your computer every time you get online. And there's been some amazing episodes this week, including yesterday's about straight guys dabbling in gay sex. So jump on, sign up for the podcast, and you'll never miss any brilliant moments. Now, if you've ever checked out live webcam porn and wondered what it's like to be the person at the other end of the camera, then it is time to find out, because with me in the Hack studio is Angela White. Now, Angela, welcome to the show. You're a webcam porn star. How did you get into that?
Well, I've been performing in pornography for the past 8 years, and a lot of my friends that I met during my performances actually said that they were doing webcamming and meeting a lot of friends through that and making a lot of money. And I thought, okay, well, I'll give this a go.
Yeah, well, it's very lucrative, and I guess the market's grown so much as the technology has improved in everyone's bandwidth. Now, tell us how it works in terms of private shows versus public shows and how people interact with you and how they pay.
So basically it all starts in the public room. In the public room, anybody can view my webcam, or anybody over the age of 18. In that room, people can tip me for so that I can flash them my breasts, or maybe they have another request. They might want to see my shoes, the soles of my feet, whatever it is they want to see.
A bit random.
Yeah, well, it's actually not as random as you'd think. It's a request that I get every single day.
Okay.
So, yeah, and also in the public room, if people give me enough tips, then I'll actually do a public cum show, is what we call it. So it's where I will masturbate to orgasm, and I've done that in front of up to 6,000 people.
Wow.
In a public room. So, and people also have the option to take me private, and that is when they can pay me a certain amount of money per minute to have a private masturbation session with me. Now, depending on how much they pay, determines whether they're actually alone with me or whether other people can spy on us.
Do you get the sense that some of these people, particularly the people that will pay for a one-on-one kind of interaction, actually keep coming back for more, and you sort of become a part of their lives in a regular way?
Absolutely, and I do have my regulars that take me private every single day that I'm online. I'm online five days a week, so I have become a big part of their sex life, and they've become a big part of mine. I mean, I do refer to my regulars as my lovers.
Yeah, right. Do you ever find out if they have other lovers, whether they be online or particularly in real life?
I know they cheat on me.
But do they cheat on their real life partners by seeing you online?
As far as I know, most of my regulars that see me every day do not have partners of their own. Like in I don't like to use the term in real life because I think webcamming still is in real life.
Fair point.
But I do have people that go private with me that do have partners. And sometimes they come private with me because they're not having their sexual needs met in that relationship, or they may have a fantasy that they think that their partner would not be open to.
Very interesting. Angela, we'll come back to you in just a moment, but we want to look at what's down the line in the future for mobile and online technology and how it might impact our sex lives. It's very interesting. Irene Scott asked the question, will it really move a long way ahead? Will there be flying cars and jetpacks of the online sex world? Let's check it out.
Here's a peep through a future window of the world. The future will no doubt be faster, more comfortable, and perhaps gratify the very human desire for novelty and romance.
The adult entertainment industry has been in the lead in technology for quite a few things across the decades. I think we can expect that to continue to be the case.
Ross Dawson is a futurist, so logically, he's got to be the guy to know about future nookie and what futuristic things we'll be able to plug into our pink bits.
So remote sex, or what is sometimes described as teledildonics.
It's called teledildonics, really?
That's right. These words are constructed from the Greek, so tele means at a distance, and dildonics refers to clearly dildos. But so more generally, it refers to just devices which give us pleasure, I suppose, which can be controlled by our partners at a distance.
Remote sex devices have started coming onto the market in the last few years. Basically, it means you can have sex over the internet.
The next phase is that of moving to full body experience, where there's something called haptic jackets, where you can communicate touch. So this is not just about our genitals, but it's also about being able to stroke people, to touch people, to hug people.
But say you met someone online, it'd then be possible to have a sexual experience without ever needing to meet them face to face.
You can pretty much guarantee very few complications, health-wise or emotionally wise.
But it goes even further than that. Remember in Star Trek where they had that holodeck? Basically, it was a room you could program to look like it was anywhere and be filled with anyone.
Computer, I'd like some place to play some music, a little atmosphere.
Specify.
Jazz.
Location.
New Orleans, Bourbon Street Bar, New Orleans.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
What's a knockout like you doing in a computer-generated gin joint like this?
Well, what if that anywhere was your favourite porn film?
Technology's using augmented reality, these ways where you can actually experience the 3 dimensions in terms of the touch and the feel, to experience what it is to be in the sex scene.
In the next decade, we should start to see realistic sex robots.
At the moment, there's a number of companies that are building sex robots, both male and female. Once we start to marry that ability to create both the look of a very attractive, what we call machine or device, which is attractive to us, there will be a very significant market for it. Sex robots, and in fact, really will come into their own when they can hold a conversation.
I am Electro, mightiest of all robots.
A doctor in the US is working on something he's calling the orgasmatron. Basically, electrodes are inserted into the space between the vertebrae and the patient's spinal cord. A giant remote control allows women or their partners to turn the electrical pulses on and off, creating an instant orgasm. But the future of sex could be happening in your very own backyard. I head to a studio in Collingwood where industrial designer Jonathan Bentovim is tweaking what could be the next sensation in sex toys.
A few companies have really changed the market and they've designed them in a way that's kind of taken them away from the kind of slightly seedy kind of XXX shops and made them really actually more just like desirable everyday products. Somebody probably asked a woman and said, you know, do you actually want this thing to look like a pink cock? And they probably said, no, not really. So that's probably a good change, I think.
He says the future of sex toys is in products that are really customisable.
And you're already seeing a number of brands where you can actually almost design the shape of the sex toy itself because, you know, there's not really one sex toy to suit everybody. In the last maybe year or two, there's been a number of biometric data things that companies have released, which are either bracelets or things you put in your shoe, and they basically kind of monitor your heart rate, they monitor how much kind of exercise you're doing. I guess I can imagine you could have a kind of sex toy version of that in which, as you and your partner are kind of having sex, you could have a kind of live feedback from an iPad or something saying, you know, this is something that's really working or not. And yeah, I reckon I can see a product something like that coming out, and I guess you particularly know, you know, if your partner's faking or not in that situation.
Very interesting. That's sex toy designer Jonathan Bentovim speaking to Irene Scott. And I have sexual culture researcher Kath Aubrey in the studio, actually shaking her head during that bit about the orgasmatron. What is it about the orgasmatron that riles you up?
There's a movement in the US to try and declare women's non-enjoyment of sex or inability to orgasm, stumbling there, as dysfunction, and try and, you know, present these magical cures, special
instant
toys.
Orgasm. It did sound a bit unbelievable.
Yeah, and basically if you're not happy in yourself, if you don't feel good in your body and you don't have a sensitive partner, the best toy in the world or website or whatever is not going to fix it.
What do you think about all these different technological advancements in sex that's kind of when two people are in remote places particularly? Do you think it really distances people from sex and who they are and the interaction they're having?
Look, I think in many cases it's like a modern day version of the love letter. You know, there's a huge tradition of lovers being separate from each other and sending very erotic letters to each other, or, you know, having remote distance love affairs. And, you know, technology just, you know, allows us to enhance what was the love letter and the Polaroid photo into a much more usable form for a lot of people, and it feels a lot more immediate for a lot of people to be able to see their lover on Skype. It really still, I think, depends on the relationship context that it's in. It can be very remote, you know, if that's the context of the relationship.
Yeah, let's go to our other guest for a moment, Angela White, who works as a webcam porn star. Now, Angela, you've seen a lot of changes in the way people consume porn, particularly online. Where do you think things are going? Do you think there are big changes and that culture is really growing?
I think people are wanting more and more of the real. They want more intimacy. I noticed at the beginning of my career in porn, you know, I had an email account open for my fans, and I had interaction with a few people, but nobody was really that interested in actually knowing more about who I was. They just kind of obviously got off to my videos. And that was it. That was the end of the story. Now, with the explosion of social media, everybody...
Much more of a personal connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
Oh, Angela, what I have to do is actually thank you for coming on the show because we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us about your work as a webcam porn star and your experience there.
Thank you.
And Kath Aubrey, thank you for guiding us through the world of online and tech sex and how it's all changing.
You're welcome.
It's Kath Aubrey. She is a researcher and a senior lecturer at the Uni of New South Wales. And thank you for all your calls and texts. Very interesting conversations continuing this week-long journey of sex. Linda Mariano is up next to give you a sexy good night. I'll catch you tomorrow at 5:30 for the final episode. Bye.